In the pandemic, recruitment, I've heard that it isn't actually that different because um, people do this stuff online anyway. Do you think that's the case?
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I know in my job we currently been hiring, but not for creative roles. And it seems like they're not missing a beat. They're still doing recruiting. They're interviewing as many people as they can. So from that front, it seems like they're still trying to keep the momentum going.
Yeah, and even in advertising, there's definitely been a lot of like switch up. There have been people who have started their own small agencies during the pandemic, and also people just like moving from agency to agency. So I don't think that there's less jobs than there was before, at least in advertising, in my experience.
It seems like in the advertising world that there's this constant bringing everything together and then busting back out into little things. Do you think that's true?
Yeah, I think you're gonna get that many different ways, but I do think it's true because agencies are always trying to reinvent themselves. Large agencies want to portray themselves as the small agencies to their clients that can kind of give them that, that intimate, one-on-one focus. And then smaller agencies want to prove to their clients that they have these big capabilities despite having small teams. So yeah, I think agencies are always in flux, reinventing themselves.
Okay, fair enough. So here they are recruiting online. Do you feel like there's any particular kind of portfolio content for beginner designers that agencies are looking for?
I think it's the same that it's always been. I mean, I guess people know recruiters to be notorious for wanting, 5 years worth of work from kids that just came out of college. But when it comes to the creatives that the recruiters ultimately send these links of portfolios to, creators are always looking for sort of like points of view when it comes to design, some kind of craft, something that they could build on. I think from a creative's point of view, like we have been there, so we have more of an understanding that you're not going to find the perfect junior candidate, but you could find someone that there's something in them, like they've got it, and you can build on that. You see that potential and you hire them and you hope for the best and you help them as much as you can.
Yeah, and adding to Emily, I think what the creatives are looking for is for them to be able to speak to their work. So to have a point of view, not just have good creative, but also have like a point of view of, or like a concept of what it was in their work as well. So like they want them to, since you can't present it at the moment, like you're sending your portfolio, there should be like a good blurb that describes what you're showing, because it's not like you're presenting it in person, which you can talk to your work. But I think that's very crucial for creative, as now we recruit creatives for different capabilities within our agency.
Yeah, and I forgot one important thing actually. I think side projects are more important than ever to have as a junior in your portfolio, because especially here in the US, sort of like our political climate and the pandemic, all of these things have kind of really inspired a lot of creatives to, like, if they have extra time to put it to good use and do cool stuff. Even if you don't have extra time, you should have something in your portfolio other than the traditional work, to show that you're so passionate about what you do that you're willing to use it to send a message.
Travis, any thoughts?
Yeah. Yeah, I actually agree with what Karen says, where it's important to really have a point of view and explain your work, even like in regular scenarios too, because I think like recruiters and art directors like that are in the field for so long, for them, I think sometimes it's hard to understand what the particular role of someone did on a project, since there's so many different hands in the pot. I think being able to say, this is what I contributed to it. And I remember one time I had an interview, like I think with a recruiter a couple of years ago, and I talked very much in the team sense, like, oh, we did this, we did that, but she was really keen on saying, what did you do? And just like inserting, I did this, I did that, instead of saying we. That way it kind of really showcases what you brought to the table.
I have heard feedback from a couple of people on internships who said that their art directors on the internship says Citytech didn't teach teamwork enough. That they had design team, but everyone would get the same brief and then everyone would just do their own thing. Do you think that that's something that should be addressed? Either by
Honestly,
or by the
kind of what it is in the real world sometimes too.
Oh, really?
I know, like at my job, like we want to be collaborative, but sometimes it's not realistic, and like our roles are kind of similar. So instead of coming together as like a whole, we just disperse, do our own thing, and then come back to me in the middle.
Right.
Yeah, I think it took me a moment, but I think I understand why some people have that reaction. I think that it's totally necessary and crucial to be able to like work on projects like singularly and be able to get tasks done, you know, yourself. But in certain, you know, industries, depending on, you know, what your work situation dynamic is, you do have to work as a team. And it's not just creatives. The teams involve strategy and it involves, you know, project managers and account people. And, you know, when those people with that kind of mindset are in the room, they kind of sway your creative because their opinions matter too. And you have to understand and know how to kind of address that kind of feedback as well from the left brain versus just the right. You know what I mean? And so I think I really enjoyed what was it? I took a class
Design team.
design team. I think that it would be for Citytech to implement a couple more of those classes and not just one, because I do think it's really important.
Yeah, and to that point too, I think with design team, I feel like also even like in professional environments, I think the hierarchy of like titles, I think, or like at least with roles, like having someone designated for specific roles, I think helps the collaboration more, where you don't have everyone doing the same thing and then feel like they have to go into their own rooms to do their own thing. I think having like different roles would definitely help. I think more people to feel like they collaborate instead of going on their own.
Yeah, I was just gonna add to that. Oh, no, go for it.
Just something you said before, Karen, about the blurbs, but say what you were going to say first.
Oh, no, so I was going to say, I think that's something that we can implement into the design team, is not only just speaking of designers and creatives and art directors. Like when I got to the real world, I was like, oh, there's an account person who's going to tell me what to do. There's a project manager who's going to manage my expectations. So I feel like if we need to add anything, it's just adding those other roles that are crucial to the design work and, you know, are necessary for us to execute as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. Just about the blurbs, I've heard lots of different ideas about how much explanation you should put into a portfolio. Because like sometimes people have a page of description of the client and the brief and the process and all that kind of stuff. And other people just say, you know, keep it really short, a couple of bullet points, because people will just whiz through a portfolio. I mean, how much do you think people would read something along panel of text?
I think.
When oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I've looked at portfolios in the. For me, I'm very visual. I'm different. I'll just skim through the good work, and then like if I like that kind of work, I'll like into more of it if there is more like explanation. But also when I know someone is in school still, I have like a different eye because I can understand like where they're coming from and understand like, you know, they're not in the field yet, so like some stuff might not be professional work.
So you guys, anyone else, long explanation, short explanation, doesn't matter that much?
Well, I think it's important to have some kind of explanation. And I think, at least for my work, it's somewhere in the middle where I understand the scrolling culture that we live on. People are going to look and see what's, you know, visually on the page before they read anything. They're going to scroll, and if they're interested, then they're going to scroll back and see, okay, what is this about if they're interested? So what I always like to put my role. So I say role, whether it's art direction and design, illustration, the role. I always like to give credit where credit is due, because especially in advertising, you're never a singular person. There's other creatives. I put that, and then I briefly explain what the challenge is, you know, what the challenge was, and how we approached it. So challenge and approach. And I try to do that in like 3 sentences.
Challenge, approach,
3 to 4.
sentences.
Those are some good pointers, Emily. Yeah, no, I agree. It shouldn't be that much copy because in the new world, it's like 2, 3 sentences max, and you're supposed to tell your story, because if not, it's on to the next page. So
yeah, and I think it's also important. I do think that when you're starting off, it's important to mention your role, because there are people that they've been out of school for like 1 year and they have a full-blown Puma 360 campaign on their portfolio, you know, and it's like, you didn't do this by yourself. And you know, being that you look, I mean, depending on, you know, what you do, you look at a lot of portfolios, and sometimes you're skeptical because people would have designed the bug, you know, for the campaign, and then they put the whole TV spot, the whole installation, the whole project on their campaign. And so it only helps you to like be clear and direct, and this is my role. I work with these people, I'm giving credit where credit is due, and put this out into the world together, you know.
I agree with that, Emily. And also, to piggyback on another thing, is it really depends on what platform you're using for your portfolio, because there are certain platforms where on the side is a fixed nav with all the description of what you have, and as the person scrolls, the work moves, but your description and everything stays. Or it could be on top, and as you scroll down, people lose it. But people don't want to have to go all the way back up to understand a piece that you have halfway through below your, you know, portfolio as you scroll. So I think little descriptions of each medium or each like design you create should have just explaining a little bit of what it is. This is a print ad, or you know, this is a social media kind of like design. So just have a little explanation, but really, again, like Emily and everyone was saying, like show love to the people that worked on the project with you, and show love as far as, let's say, you know, the portfolio for the person you worked on the project with, put their name, hyperlink it. So let's say you're the type of person that's more art direction, but the person you worked with does really want copy. They click the link, they go to her portfolio or his portfolio. It could be, you know, you could get, both of you guys can get hired. You never know. So again, always show love to the person you work with.
That's a really good point about linking to the other people. That's a really nice one. Okay, so moving on, social media. So there's 2 aspects to this. One is your personal social media, and the other is how do you operate? How much are you, you know, au fait with how social media works? So first of all, from a personal point of view, from a design student coming out, how important is it for somebody to have a design, you know, Instagram account, or just to be able to show people that they're on social media as a sort of social thing? Or, you know, is that supposed to be, should that be a way that you get recruited through your social media? I mean, how do you see social media in young people's lives, who are young designers' lives?
Yeah, I even struggle with that as well. Of like, you know, how much personal do you put on your social media? I feel like that's the purpose of it. At least that's how it started. Then it became, you know, becoming like all about like design focused. I think I feel like people shouldn't feel forced to have like a portfolio, like a public one, and have it like sway to either way if they're not comfortable with that. I feel like be yourself, and like if you're not looking to be recruited on social media, then that's just, I feel like that should just be a personal. But if your focus is to get recruited on social media, then I feel like you should have more of your design portfolio on your social media. But I think it just depends on your focus, and that's how you want to get recruited or not.
So do you think your own work or stuff I like?
I think that's where it gets tricky too, because if you're trying to be the one to get recruited and only showing other people's work, it just shows you that you got an eye for what looks nice, but it doesn't really show your capabilities of it. So I think it really depends on what you're trying to portray yourself as on that page.
Sure.
Yeah. To add to what Travis said, I think it's up to you, because you choose to be private or you choose to be public. And if you're public, it's because you want to be found. And, you know, being in an industry, a creative industry, people are gonna want to know what your Instagram is. I remember one time when the world was open, I was in a social event, and it was a lot of people from advertising or in some kind of creative industry, and no one was asking for business cards. Everyone was asking, hey, what's your Instagram handle? And I just found that to be so surprising. It's so odd, but it makes perfect sense. If you are going to have a social media page, I think many factors matter. At this point in time, your political affiliations, if it's something that you think is going to turn people off, don't talk about it privately. Publicly. If you're going, if you do like certain things, if you have a sense of style, present that as such. Be clear about what you're showing and why you're showing it. And just know that if you're putting something out there publicly, it's just something else people will be judging you by, and recruiters absolutely look for that. And a lot of times it helps you to have a public profile, even if you don't have work on it, and it's just beautiful travel photos or photos of you doing your side hustles, or the hobbies that you're interested in. That kind of thing recruiters love to know. But again, it can also be a turnoff if you post, let's see, a certain meme that might not be taken in the best way. It can cost you a possible job. It really can.
Yeah, I was going to say social media is very tricky. It can be good, but it can also be bad if you're very vocal of certain things and everyone doesn't agree. So it's I say keep it private, and just like Emily said, keep it private. And then, but if you want to be found, to keep it public, but you kind of have to, I want to say, play it safe for a little bit, because and maybe you do, if you want to show other people's things, maybe you do it as a blog and not on your social media if you're trying to be found, especially if it's Karen's design page, or make it yours, or you can put stories and say this is, or hashtag inspiration or something, but just make it known what's your work and what's inspiration.
Yeah, be very clear for who's what. Yeah.
And I think some people, they decide to do two Instagrams. They have one private for their personal close friends, and they have one where it's more focused on their design and their work and what they like. Yes, and again, what everyone's saying really depends on you. It really depends on, hey, do I want to show all of this, or do I want to keep it, private for me? What I like to do is, for my Instagram, I had it public. Then recently I made it private. I was like, I'm all right. But it was more of I wanted to show my hobbies, what I do on the side. But then I looked into it. I'm like, but this is personal, and this stuff I do on the side, it's not very clear. So I'm like, I'm just going to keep it private. I'm just going to keep it personal moving forward. But what you can do is make another Instagram and have that, be your strictly design Instagram.
Yeah.
And when you're showing love to other brands, have them as highlights, have them as stories. Don't put them as posts. Posts is going to be all your work, all your stuff. And if you want to show love to other brands, like I said, make them highlights. You can make them just a story. They're gone in 24 hours and all is good. So I think that could be a decision someone can choose to do.
Cool. Yeah. Good. That makes sense. Okay, so the other thing is in terms of social media that you're going to put into your portfolio. I've been encouraging people to add animation to their portfolios. Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. I don't know. I mean, is this the kind of thing that people are looking for these days?
Well, yeah, definitely now TikTok, and I think animation, even the slightest animation. Because social media is very visual, so I feel a little bit of movement goes a long way sometimes. So I think also showing your work in devices also I think helps visualize that this is a social media post versus this is a web ad.
Yeah. I also want to add to that and say that, it's kind of unrealistic for recruiters to expect designers to do every single thing when it comes to animation and illustration and composition, print. I mean, I think, some people choose to do a range of things. Other people choose to focus and really master a few things. But this is when collaboration is awesome, because you know, let's say you have a logo that you made that you really like, or an illustration that you made that you really like. Like I have an illustration page that I'm working on now, and I have friends from Citytech hitting me up saying, hey, I'm an animator now. I would love to collaborate and animate one of your illustrations, you know? And boom, you tag that person, like Fidel said, you know, this is in collaboration between me and this person. Because, you know, and I, you know, kick myself all the time for not knowing animation myself, because I hate not being able to do things myself. But when a client sees something that's still and beautiful, they love it, you know? But when they see that thing move, it blows their mind, you know? So animation does something that you just cannot capture still, you know? And that's when, you know, you bring in reinforcements if you don't have that skill set.
Yeah, and I think what Emily also said, that that's definitely like a great like space for the advertising world. But sometimes like at like smaller places, like when you're client side, sometimes you got to do it all. So it really depends on like if you are at an agency, if you have a smaller company client side, but they want to, you know, have as many resources internal as possible.
Yeah.
So, and like especially now, I think, you know, you kind of have to be like a jack of all trades, which sometimes is like a burden on, you know, the designer itself, because you can't really, like Emily said, you know, hone in on your specific skills, but sometimes you just have to like be able to juggle it all, or, you know, at least of what you're able to do.
Sure.
That is true.
Anyone else? Are we good?
Oh yeah, I can do some 2 cents. Learn how to make GIFs.
Yeah.
Easy. 3 seconds.
Is this just Photoshop you're talking about?
Photoshop does like the, you know, little quick animations, you know, but learn how to make GIFs. There's also an app I can recommend. I'll send it to you, McCabe. It's for my desktop. It's called Giphy Capture. And what it does is it almost like, it could be a video. You can have any video you have, and it pretty much, you know, you can hover over it and it saves that video into a GIF.
What?
That only took like 3 seconds. But again, let's say you're doing an ad for, I don't know, a coffee shop or whatever, but you want to have like someone pouring coffee next to, you know, a logo you created. You're like, ooh, this is nice. Find the video of coffee, use the Giphy Capture, boom, save it as a GIF, put it next to your logo. Now you have some pouring coffee next to the logo you created. It just gives it a different, you know, style.
Sure.
And you don't do much. So yeah, there's one little recommendation I have.
Yeah, and the funny thing too, like Vidal says, like, you know, everyone like really loves GIFs. It doesn't even have to be very very thought out. Literally at my old job, if I made the color change, go back and forth, they were like, wow. Like the littlest movement goes a long way. Even like sometimes I do like image carousels as a GIF. But sometimes we, you know, like for emails, it's either static or you do a GIF. So I just like animate between 2 images back and forth. And that's like, you know, makes a big difference. Just like they call it like dynamic. So making like any little thing move, it's kind of like intriguing sometimes, at least from the client side. They're like, wow, this is amazing. It might not to you be like the best work, but it's like, you know, it does like a little extra.
Yeah. No, I think that's really smart. Karen, do you have any thoughts on that?
I think they hit all the points, and Fidel just taught me something new. So you're going to send all of us that app.
Yes, I will.
Adding to what Karen just said, it's also very important to share your resources with your friends.
That's true.
That's something that we do still to this day. We send each other everything, inspiration, memes, everything you can think of.
So any resources you can, share them out because it just makes, you know, your work better. And in the end, it's like everyone's winning.
Yeah, actually going back to the social media, like the TikTok and like now Instagram has Reels. Nowadays, everyone's like into like the edutainment kind of space where like I literally see TikToks of like junior graphic designers like, hey, this is how you change, like move the background on an image.
Yeah.
Like us as like being veterans, like we know how to do that. But even like they're new to it, it just gives them that platform to show that they are an expert in what they're doing.
Yeah,
even if it's like the littlest thing that anyone might know how to do already, but it just shows that, you know, you have a sense of what you're doing.
And what's the new one you mentioned, Emily? Now I'm seeing it everywhere. Where people talk in groups. Clubhouse.
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 That's the new wave.
Invitation only. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna lie, I had an idea very similar to Clubhouse that was shut down for a project, and now it exists, and it made like $1 billion. It's worth like $1 billion, that platform now.
Yes.
But it is an audio-based platform, invite only, in which you can join these rooms. Picture a chat room, but instead of typing, you're having conversations. And what's cool is that they have several kind of prominent celebrities and masters of different industries joining these rooms. So you get these intimate conversations, that you wouldn't have had otherwise. It's sort of like you're in a room with people you would have never been in a room with.
So it's like that sort of masterclass thing.
Kind of, but it's live. Because it's not like a podcast. You're like having a conversation. Sure. It's pretty clever.
So question for you, Emily.
When are you going to invite us?
When are you going to invite us? True. Number 2, should someone include some type of Clubhouse feature in their portfolios?
I mean, I think that'd be brilliant. I have a few invitations, I've been holding them back. I might give it to you guys, but I think it's really smart to be on top of what's relevant and put that in your portfolio. It just really is, from any standpoint, like during, the summer and the Black Lives Matter movement and all that stuff, there's so many people putting work against that on their portfolios. When TikTok came out, there are people, having things in their portfolio showing how to hack TikTok or using it in a way that's not expected. Doing something for Clubhouse would be pretty awesome. And that's the kind of mindset that people, at least in advertising, recruiters would look for,
So being current and relevant to that. So Clubhouse feature. So, do all these rooms look different? Are they decorated to suit a particular genre or?
No, and it's just sort of like room in a metaphorical sense, but it's sort of like you join a room, you join basically a talk. It's sort of like joining a meeting where there's lots of people on it, but there's always a moderator too. And then you can join, but you cannot speak until someone brings you up on the stage, and then you can speak. And it's everybody's really polite. Like when they're on the stage, they make sure they're muted. People, speak. Then you can click a button and raise your hand. It's pretty wild, kind of like, Black Mirror-y, but it's pretty cool. And there's loads of different topics you can learn about, whether it's people telling their story, discussing an episode of a TV show, discussing design. I think the only reason why, like, the advertisers and, the influencers haven't been hardcore on it yet is because it is invite only. But, I think it's destined to be a pretty grand platform.
Well, I think the invite only, just that already makes it really special.
But Facebook was also invite only at one point too. So
really?
Eventually,
I didn't know that.
You gotta be at college.
Facebook, it was.
Mainly for them though is because they want to prepare their platform for a mass.
Mass rollout.
They don't want to crash.
But Facebook at the beginning was just talking about how big somebody is, and so that was a whole different world.
Different intentions.
So do you guys, so for actually looking for a job when you're leaving school, the whole networking thing, the whole finding out who needs what thing, how would you recommend people go about doing that? You are with your new portfolio, you just graduated, I need a job.
I don't want to talk more than anyone else, but I do have an answer for this, and that is you have to definitely seek internships, because that's how you get in the door. That's how I got in the door in advertising. And when you're an intern, people they want to help you because you're an intern, even more so if you are like a junior starting off. I think you should also then reach out to people like through LinkedIn at places where you want to work and just ask for that advice, ask for a quick, video call, ask them to look at your portfolio.
Video what?
Video call.
Video call, yeah.
Yeah, and ask for them to review your portfolio. And that's how you kind of like just, have people see your name and recognize your name. Also look at your portfolio, give you insights. I think you have to always take the humble route and be like, hey, help me. I understand you're busy, but look at this, I think that's the way to do it. You know, there's also, people and they get you places, but when you don't have those connections, take that humble route, hit people up on LinkedIn, on Instagram, follow them on Instagram if they're public, they want to be followed, and just humbly ask for help and for advice.
Yeah, I think in this day and age too, it's hard. Like I can't even imagine like how I would like get through the door. I know actually, I mean, a lot of stuff that I did was through Twitter and like social media, like just like reaching out to people and like commenting saying, hey. But I even imagine now everyone reaching out to one person because like that's like the only way to get in contact now. So I can imagine it's a little bit difficult too in general. But I think, still like network the best way you can. I think LinkedIn will probably be the best way since I feel like that's just like the very professional platform to be on for that kind of thing. And like internships, I think definitely the way to go. You get in the door, you get your professional experience as well as meeting people in the field. Always be able to reach out to them later to see if they have any connections to other places you might want to work at.
Yeah, internships is key. And also don't be afraid. Like just apply, right? Like you have nothing to lose. I always say this, you have nothing to lose. When I was at Citytech, I applied for an internship at MTV and everyone was like, oh, you interned at MTV? How'd you do it? I was like, I just applied and I got picked, and everyone was like, oh my God, how'd you do that? And then I was like, I mean, you just do it. Like, I didn't have any connections at MTV. I sent my resume to like, I don't know how many companies to get an internship, and MTV responded and they gave me a shot. And then also keeping your connections, as my 3 dear friends here from Citytech. Well, I got an internship in Complex after Emily. So just keeping your connections, and you don't know who you're going to work with or be in the business with. So network, and don't be afraid, like Emily said, to ask for help, but just do it. Like, don't think about it. They're like, oh my God, this company is so big. Like, you have nothing to lose. Just go for it,
Travis, didn't you have a previous internship at Complex as well?
I think we all.
Yeah.
I have Complex. I was at Vibe, and we we admired Complex. We wanted to be like Complex. And I'm like,
I think Complex became what Vibe was, and then it's funny, like Vibe wanted to be done what Complex became.
Right.
Yeah.
What's funny is I forget who owns. I forgot what company owns now. They own Complex and Vibe.
Oh, I think it's Hearst. They're under Hearst.
Really?
I think they're under Hearst. I forget.
Yeah, I think they're under Hearst Media. Yeah, they're not like a media company and all that.
Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay.
Is it any good these days, Complex?
I don't think it's a physical magazine anymore. I think it's just digital online.
Yeah, Vibe as well. There was
Platform now.
Yeah.
It's a platform now. I think that it's really clever the way they've kind of what they've become. Because Complex used to be just a magazine, but now they are a platform that has several social media accounts, each geared toward specific niches. Because on the magazine they had a fashion section, they had art, now they have a Complex art page, they have a general Complex page, they have a fashion page. You follow what you want, or you follow all of them.
Even have a convention too.
It's so smart the way that they've developed in this digital world.
It's called Complex Con.
They have they do all the tech, like crazy college campus runs. I know we got them for Samsung last year. Well, we were supposed to do it and then the pandemic happened, but they were like gonna do a whole Samsung, like give all the kids in the campus a Samsung phone so they can shoot content, and then the person who would come up with like the best content was going to win a grand prize or win an internship at Complex. It was like, and it's like so cool because it's giving kids the opportunity to show their talent, and being sponsored by like Samsung to like use their phone. So their platform is huge now. I think they're actually bigger than when they were an actual like magazine and way bigger. Yeah.
And this is not sponsored by Complex at any point.
No.
We're talking about like.
I got my check in the mail yesterday.
Yeah.
I got my check yesterday.
But also, I was gonna say we had Anthony who interned, who was an alumni from Tech too. So it's like they were like, yeah, the Citytech guys are good, and we keep getting you guys, and I'm like, yeah, we're from there.
I wanted to add 2 points based on what we just said. The first one is that, you don't only just reach out outward to people you don't know, but also reach out to people that went to school with you.
Mhm.
Most importantly, the people that graduated a year, 2, 3 years before you, that you were once in the same school with, because those people are 3, 4 years in, probably looking for their next promotion. And so now you're looking for where they were,
Yeah.
years prior.
And no, continue.
And that's how I got to Complex. It was Anthony, then it was Travis, then it was me, then it was Karen. It was a lovely chain reaction. I mean,
and then I also think like our professors, like Professor McCabe, you got me my first job. You hired me, and then you introduced me to. I remember actually you introduced me to Anthony, kind of. I remember you mentioned him a couple of times when you saw I wanted to be in magazines, and Professor Davis as well. He like you two are like the ones that really helped my career, like always going to you guys, like helping me get in the door. Like definitely I think the professors at Citytech, they're very well connected as well. So I feel like you really have access to them. So I think they are a great resource, especially in this time where some people might not be comfortable like hard reaching out to just like a random person that they admire, but just going to their internal, like Emily said, to like the people you already know.
Yeah, I mean, I had Professor Gershoff, and till this day, he will LinkedIn me like, "Congratulations on your new job," and I'm like, "Oh my god, that's like the sweetest thing."
Professor Neringer too.
Huh?
Professor Neringer too.
Yeah, she's on my Facebook too, and they're just like still so supportive. Like they like to see us, and I think that's the difference between Citytech and other schools as well. It's like you guys want to see us win and will help us, to get there. But I feel like connections within like just us, because I've referred a bunch of people from Citytech. When I graduated, Gershoff would ask me if we needed interns at my company, and I was like, yeah, let's bring them in. So it's also like we want to help them as well because we were in their position. So of course, now that we're in these big agencies, like, yeah, like we want to help you guys, and feel free to reach out like to any of us. And we're all basically connected in LinkedIn. Like you can find Citytech and just message someone because we were all there and we're all willing to help, anyone because we know how it feels,
Well, I'm going to suggest that everybody links to you guys on LinkedIn.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
There will be hopefully some new people coming along.
And this is another option people can take as well. For example, if you feel like, damn, I applied all these internships, nothing's happening. Don't feel discouraged. You can also just continue to learn. Get involved in online programs like Skillshare or Masterclass, all those things, and keep on learning. You can also maybe take a 1-credit course on something you wanted to always learn. For example, let's say your book is great, but you kind of want to learn some animation, like Emily was mentioning earlier.
Yeah.
Take a class, learn about animation and improve your book, but still keep on applying for jobs. That's another way you can go. And you can also go for your master's. I know it's a lot of money, but that's another option as well. Continue on in your education and continue to learn something new.
By the way, Fidel, how did that work out for you, your master's?
So I was enrolled in the big program at City College. I graduated back in 2018. It went very well. I actually had a class with Professor Davis. He actually taught a thesis class. So it was a new light in Professor Davis. Like he really didn't give people answers. And, it's a master's course, but people will get extremely frustrated.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I've taken Davis before. This is what's gonna happen. And people are like, what? How can you how can you even react this way? Like he's not telling us what to do. I'm like, I know he's not gonna tell us. We just gotta keep on giving him different ideas, different comps, different ways of approaching the problem and creating solutions. Like he's not gonna tell us anything. So my team will get completely frustrated until at the end result is always something that's amazing. So I can say overall, I learned a lot in the program. What it was almost like a refresher because I graduated Citytech in 2011, went and get my master's in 2016. So it's almost like, okay, you're kind of bringing back those things that you learned before, but taking it to another tier, learning how to research. Research is not just let me Google something. It's a lot more than that. So learn research.
That's a very good
Learning
one.
the business aspect in design. Learning about like what's a powerful insight, because sometimes a powerful insight can carry a campaign and it needs to be strong. It needs to hit the person like right here and be, you know, meaningful. How do you get to that point? Very, very tough, because you can have an insight like, oh yeah, for example, when the sun shines, I feel better. My mood is better. I'm like, that's, yeah, maybe, but is there facts behind it? Did it make someone like, oh, wow, that's a great idea. I never thought about that. That's what it needs to be impactful.
Yeah.
So a lot of those little things I learned in the program, and to me, it was worth it, because now I can tell myself I never need to go to school again because I got my master's. So it's a great feeling. Is no more school. So again, it really depends on you. You can choose, hey, I'm not getting an internship. Let me keep on learning. Let me keep my skills fresh, because there could be some times where, you know, I think a lot of our friends that graduate as well, they're not all in design. They went elsewhere. Some are teachers now. Some, you know, go, you know, do another type of profession. But again, keep your skills fresh and, you know, don't stop trying. Keep on going.
You know, what Fidel just said, it just made me think about a question you asked Professor earlier about whether Citytech should implement more teamwork, you know, in, you know, the structure of things. And I think absolutely, because like what Fidel just said, the insight, you know, when the sun shines, I feel better. You know, sometimes when you're working in isolation, you think you have an insight, you're like, that's brilliant, let me run with it. And you run with it all the way to the finish line. And you only hear what other people think when you're done with the project and it's on the wall when the world was open and they're reacting to your end product. But if you are in a team dynamic where people are kind of bouncing ideas off of each other and checking each other, you know, because you need to have that tough skin too. You have to be able to like receive feedback on things that you love and course correct, you know. Sometimes, you know, the insight, the foundation to your idea isn't as strong as it would have been if you were with other people in the room that would check you and say, actually, you know, that's not, you know, a strong enough insight.
Yeah.
You know, and therefore your end result will be that much stronger.
I want to also say that for people that just graduate, don't be discouraged if you don't get a job right away, because it took me a year. So in that year, definitely take some classes, learn more, you know, keep up with the new world. And just because you go on a bunch of interviews and you don't get it, like, do not get discouraged, because you will find something. So it's just the reality of it, right? Some people can get a job right after their internship. Some people can take a little bit longer. So keep working on it, keep building your portfolio, but don't be discouraged if you apply to 4 jobs and you don't get it right away, because it is a hustle, you know?
And again, it's easier said than done. We can tell you, don't get discouraged, but some people might.
Of course.
And that's the way of life. But if you ever find yourself in that situation, holler at a friend, call a buddy, work on a new project together. Keep that, what do I call it? Keep that like design spark going.
The fire under your belly.
Yeah, because sometimes you're like, nah, I'd rather just, you know, a certain like department store is hiring, I'm just gonna go work there, and then, you know, you never know what may happen. But keep that rolling, because if you don't, sometimes it just goes away and you're like, you know, life happens and you go on a different path. But keep yourself like, you know, motivated and inspired by things. Look at other people's work. Look at commercials, make yourself laugh, like all those things I think are beneficial.
Yeah, and I also think like enjoying your passions. I feel like sometimes us as designers, we feel like design has to be our passion, but I think sometimes passions outside of design kind of inspires your design. So I think not feeling like you have to get so caught up in design and be able to breathe outside of design. Because there is, you know, world life, you know, life without behind, you know, life outside of design, life outside of work. So I think finding that as well, kind of, I think will help you just like be able to find inspiration and stuff you create as well. And I think also, like, I always say this, I know like when we're young, you know, at like 18 years old, 17, we're given this task of what you want to do with the rest of your life. And I think people like me, I know I had a creative spark. I didn't know what design was, but I went into it. But say if I didn't feel like say if I got to where I got, but then I ended up not liking design. I feel like not putting so much pressure on yourself to get a job, especially that's not what you want to do. I think people feel like, you know, I have this degree, I need to put it to use. Sometimes your life changes, your passions change. And I feel like I just probably like not the best advice to say, hey, you know, if you don't like design, don't do it no more. But I think not pressuring yourself to pursue something that you're not passionate about, even though you have like the work behind it. I think that just helps internally, I think, ease someone's pressure on having to get a job.
Yeah.
If they don't like the field.
I also wanted to mention that there's an aggressive route to this too. You know, you can, you know, reach out to people in your network or a little bit outside of your network, which would be people who graduated before you. You can reach out to people that are not in your network that work where you want to work, or, you know, may have worked with people that work at places where you want to work. But then there is an aggressive route where you want to create buzz, right? And so in that case, you become your own client and you have to problem solve and say, how can I be seen in this world of a million different juniors, you know, that just came out of school and that are also looking for jobs? What can I do to, you know, get their attention? You know, there are people who, you know, when the world is open, would send ECDs in advertising, creative directors, you know, these kind of leave behinds that are clever but are useful, you know. But then going back to Complex, which should really just start paying us at this point, the amount that we're talking about them, they went from a print magazine to this mega platform with millions of followers. And they did that by learning, you know, and basically flexing with the times. Being that we're living in this virtual world, what can they do virtually to get the attention? Is it something around sending, you know, an exec, you know, Starbucks, enough money for a Starbucks coffee, and then greeting them and having like a video conference call with them where they're both enjoying the coffee that they paid for, and you advise that way,
right? Or send them an invite to Clubhouse.
Clever, you know, exactly. Like you just have to be clever, you know, do something that would be on, you know, the title of an article, because I think people in advertising love attention. They love the press, that kind of thing. Can you, you know, get people's attention that way? You know, there's an aggressive way to search for a job, and then there's you know, the standard, and then asking for help. But there are different routes you can take.
Yeah,
what's the point?
That's a good point. So well, the last question I had was anything else anybody wants to say? But you said quite a lot already. Don't feel like you have to. But is there anything else you want to say?
Do you guys speak about what type of platforms people are hosting their portfolios on?
In portfolio class, it's not a coding class, so the websites are just whatever freebies are up. And I know that a lot of people go to Behance. That I find
right.
It's just really clunky. Behance is terrible, but a lot of people go there. If you're trying to go for a freebie platform, I don't know what's the best now. I mean, ultimately, really, they should have their own URL. But the problem is with the portfolio class, you really got to focus on the work.
Work versus the platform. Is there a class that focuses on platforms?
There's, you know, web coding classes. So maybe I'll do a presentation on platforms this semester.
Right, just maybe, I think you don't have to do this. They're grown students. Research other portfolio platforms that you can use and check out the interfaces on them. Just be like, I like how this flows. I like how this looks. And because that's really important, because if your site loads too long, no one's looking at your work.
Yeah.
Also,
go ahead, Amy.
No, go finish.
No, just thinking in general, like site loads too long, no one's looking at it. If your homepage seems off, if your links ain't clicking and working, no one's looking at your stuff. So you put all that love, all that passion into your work, but your site is not, you know, is off. But so I think it's more of it should be maybe a class where your portfolio's done, is fully polished. Now let's look at ways to tweak it. Is platform working, etc. But that's something you guys
in the portfolio class. There's a portfolio class. I think doing your website should be part of that class. you know, because it's really interesting. It's great to have that, but especially now, you should have a website. And I think before, it was more of an involved process to have your own website because you had to code and do all that stuff. But there's plenty of platforms like what I think that was also getting to, that you can just have a site in one day. You know, there's Squarespace, there's Cargo Collective, you know, there's Wix, yep. There are a bunch of different things. And I think it's all about having sort of like the taste to use these platforms that are templated and can easily get very clunky and make it as clean as possible. Because when you have your website, it's not about how cool I can make the website and have GIFs moving that are unrelated to the work I'm showing. It's about the work and how can I display it, you know, in the best way. It's sort of like going to a gallery.
The problem is, a lot of students are broke and they don't want to fork out money to pay for a site, which Squarespace, for instance, you have to. So I think that's why I sort of say, you know, eventually you can get your own URL. The other thing is their work needs a ton of work. I mean, the project that they have from their classes almost inevitably, I mean, they just have to spend a lot of time on them, you know, just making them look good and expanding them and stuff. And sometimes, you know, learning how to animate. So in terms of time in the semester, I mean, what you're describing, you could take, you know, six weeks doing that. However, I am trying to spend a bit more time on the websites just because it's, you know, a crappy website is just really crappy.
Yeah, I think like for the there definitely should be like a portfolio part 2 where it is like, you know, loading your work, making like a great looking website to display your work on.
Yeah.
I have one more question. I just realized, you know how people have like a deck that you pitch something and it's got like 32 pages on it? How do you display that in a portfolio?
Well, in Behance, which is actually, I think like the platforms can get very clunky, but if you can control it, it can be quite beautiful and just elegant. On Behance, I see people just string it into one long page that you just scroll from page to page.
So it's like,
that's how I've seen it displayed quite nicely.
But you would want every single cell in there?
Probably just to keep key.
Yeah, I think like the most like design parts of it.
Yeah.
Tell a story with the scroll.
Yeah.
The scroll should tell me a story as I'm going down and I'm reading. And I'm like, okay, I understand. This happens and this happens, you know.
So a caption per page, basically.
Yeah, like a little caption. Like, let's say it was a coffee company, you know, show me your variations of the logo. We scroll down. This how it looks in packaging. We scroll down. Here's how it looks here's how the shop looks, you know, outside. Yeah. This how it looks inside. In time of COVID, this is what we're doing. Then how are people getting to know about this coffee shop on social?
But
that's it. The whole campaign.
You have like long explanations about the brief and how I came up with my ideas, and it can get quite wordy. They're doing that a lot at Citytech at the moment. They didn't used to do quite so much of this stuff, and it's just a little bit daunting when there's 30 pages of this stuff.
You know, I think would be very helpful to your students. Luisa, you see, I called you Luisa.
Very good.
Like I said, I would. I think it'd be really helpful for them to have a library of links, of examples from professionals, basically saying, we think that this is a great way to display a branding project. We think this is a great way to explain a 360 campaign with actual examples.
Very specific kinds of projects, you mean?
For specific kind of projects. And they would be linked, Behance pages. Look at how beautifully this person displayed their whole branding process.
Yeah.
You know, this advertising concept. Look at how beautiful they did it, you know, in this way. I think it's really important to have, you know, specific references, and they don't have to copy it, but they have, like, let's say 3 different ways to show branding.
Yeah.
They can make their own based on what they see. So maybe it'd be good to have sort of like a resource for your students, you know, showing.
That's actually a really good project for them. Like they're divided into groups, so each group can come up with 5 links that display branding or 360 or, you know, digital this and that, magazines, whatever. They can take a look at Complex, certainly. But that's a really good idea. That's a really good idea.
And I actually think, Professor, that maybe instead of them, because they're going by what they think is cool, but if there are people like professionals in the field saying, I like this and I like that, and they're using that resource, I think that might be not a safe way, but like more like a, I don't know, more verified
No,
recommendation.
I'm gonna have to do it, or I'm gonna have to get somebody else to do it. No,
Or you can ask us for examples, because I'm a link hoarder and I have many links. My point is, I'm happy to share.
If you guys want to send me any inspirational links, I am happy to accept them anytime at all. But yes,
I'm sending you links. Yeah, I'm sending you stuff.
It's a very good idea. Thank you for that.
And I think I'm noticing now Behance, since it's free and it's your face is pretty clean and it's nice. I think maybe lean more towards Behance to start now, and even have fun trying to find ways to hack it. Not hack the site, but hack how it moves with images and things of that nature. So definitely explore Behance and see some possibilities that can happen there.
No, that for whatever reason the industry loves Behance. I guess because it's Adobe. But yeah.
And it's way better than it was back when we were in school, I must say. There's like world-class like cinematographers and photographers and designers on Behance.
Oh,
you just have to find the right links.
Yeah, and students who have the Adobe Creative Cloud, there's like a feature that you can have your own portfolio site.
Thank you so much for this. This is really helpful and really useful. And also, it's so lovely to see you guys. Best of luck to all of you. Have a wonderful Saturday. Absolutely keep in touch. Send me any cool links that you come across, or stick it on the comedy page. And yeah, I hope to see you soon at some point in New York.
Yeah, same.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
See you. Bye, Chloe.
Learn how to make gifts.